Okay, another one where it's gonna be kind of weird because I don't really do in-person content anymore. However, I'm gonna try it out again because, once again, ended up getting a very interesting game that I just think more people should either be talking about or looking at, because it took, I think, 4 years after release until I actually heard of it. And that game is Star Trek Adventures Captain's Log. So this is actually a solo role-playing game, kind of similar, as in, like... Alright, not similar at all. Similar in the vein that this is a solo game. Spider Hunt is also a solo game, and that kind of got me into wanting to play more, and I had already been interested in this book just because I love Star Trek. I really like the original series. I think the acting and everything is perfect of the period. When I heard about this, I was actually very excited because this allows you to essentially make your own Star Trek stories. And I don't mean that in the sense that there are predetermined missions where you will already know the possibilities that could happen. I mean, this book contains every single thing you personally need to create alien races, to create starships, to create star bases, to create planets and solar systems and everything in between. Although mine is the original series version, it is series agnostic. It is not series dependent. So, if we go to the date era, we will see that there's a list for era-specific technologies and their terminology. So, for the Enterprise era, which is before the original series, that would be a communicator. Star Trek, it's a communicator, but in Next Generation, they call it a comm badge. Grappler is a tractor beam. Things like that. Just stuff to help you sort of get into the period that you will be essentially writing and playing in. Because this is, by all means, a journaling game, and they heavily suggest to you that you journal as much as possible, because that really is part of the fun in this game. This is made by people who love Star Trek for people who want more of the same genre that they grew accustomed to. So, someone like me, I like things like Trouble with Tribbles. Things like that. There was a seriousness, but also a silliness to the original series. And I always really enjoyed that, especially with Spock, and, he always came across sort of machine-like, but he did have personality deep hidden in there, and that is something that this book actually makes note of. Vulcans are actually a very emotional race. It's simply how they show their emotion that is different. They are a very logical species. This book goes into other things like that for every single race that has shown up in the show for the most part. Every major race. So, let's take a look here. So here we go. Here is the list of races that are available in each era. So we have the Enterprise era, the original series era, we have the Next Generation era, and that is it. But out of all of these three, there are a huge variety different races, which this book does go into detail on each and every one of them. So as I was saying before about the Vulcans... Oh, here. Klingons, a proud warrior species centered in the Beta Quadrant. There is a great redundancy in Klingon organs, with 2 livers, multiple stomachs, 3 lungs, and an 8-chambered heart. Their skeletal structure also has several redundancies that mitigate injuries that would prove fatal to other humanoids. That right there is a perfect description of the Klingons if you have never heard or seen them. And that, for me, is what makes this book perfect. The people that wrote it went through and in detail described every possible thing that they could. Same for, say, the starships. The starships are all very specific as well, and they give you guides on how to make adjustments that are not given in the book, what your starship can possibly do, different ways you could use it, and it also goes over things like initiative, which is something that works differently in this game. Initiative is more based on your personal feeling and what you think would happen. When you are playing this is very much you deciding everything. It is not as much a game as it is I can't even say guided, because it's not necessarily guided. The book gives you a proper path to follow, and that can be seen in the very back of the book here. Right here, we can see where they list the core game loop. Trying a different way of filming this. This is not working the best, but you can see that it says, I can see that it says, the core game loop is narrating to a task, rolling the dice to see if what you want to do in that task is possible, determining the impact of the task, narrating the outcome, and then you will repeat this. And this book is wrote so you can play the game as if it were an episode of Star Trek. So you don't need to narrate things like downtime or every single interaction on the ship or to and from places. A lot of this can just be skipped over, which is something that is done in a TV show. Each scene is specifically supposed to be described, and that is seen over here with your mission tracker. So each major plot point in the journey, the beginning, the center, or middle, and the end of your journey, is marked by 5 separate scenes. So the way that you actually determine if you have successfully finished your mission is how well each scene went. So if you have succeeded in a scene, say you are on a diplomatic mission with some alien species, let's say the Romulans, and you manage to successfully, in one of your scenes, convince them that the Federation is actually going to be there to help them. That right there can be a singular scene success, because maybe after that you're going to go into a scene where there is a disruption. Maybe some Klingons try to intervene, and that would lead into your next scene. So, I mean, overall, this is truly a simple concept. And as I mentioned before, this is a journaling game in most senses of the word. So, each sort of major event is going to have a log entry. So your opening log is generally going to be something similar to this. I will take an example from one of mine. So I actually don't play as the captain in the one that I've been going through. I have been playing as Chief Scientist Garfield Gar Lansing, and his first log on his first mission aboard the USS Zephyr goes as such. Chief Scientist log, stardate 2250. While on a diplomatic mining mission, we are informed by Starfleet of a rogue superweapon present in some ancient ruins nearby one of the mining operations. And that enough there would be fine. I go on to talk about how it presents different possibilities for us to deal with it and what possibly we can do. I like to write a lot. So when I'm writing pages. Each mission for me is usually 3 to 4 pages. So you probably will not have that many if you are playing it as a normal person, I feel like. And then after you complete each mission, you generally go over and you will write a summary. Generally, you'll give it a name if you haven't already. A title to an episode. So, my very first one's name is the Rule over Femtide, which is the race that was on the planet that had the mineral contracts that we were trying to obtain through the Federation. Sorry for my bird throat, some of this. I know she's a little squawky, but we love her. So anyways, going back into this, you'll write your summary of the mission, name the mission, and then you'll go over the very quick events, and then if you have gained or lost any values, which that is the point in the mission. That is going to be your driving factor to see what you want to happen. So you will take a value that you hold, or, well, not you, but your character. So one of mine is scientific progress is the way forward, always. Now, the way that this game works, I will go into a mission, and I have 4 different values. One of those should apply in some way to the overarching objective in the mission. So, for mine, scientific progress is always the way forward. There are a lot of episodes in which there are beings that are much more, I don't want to say sentient, but much more developed or so called, where they are able to do much more than we physically could. They are able to do things like create matter, or create, at the very least, illusions of matter that seem to have their own agency. So that could be something that plays into that value for me. I could very well run into a species that needs help treating an illness that, for some reason, our known scientific processes are unable to do, but there is a being somewhere in the galaxy that makes contact and is able to reverse it themselves. This is something that would make a great mission, and very well might be my next one. Who knows? But my point being is, each time you run into something like that, you will change your value from that mission. And you can change multiple. But for that particular mission, it would be, well, scientific progress is the way forward when necessary, or changing the value to where it still sort of reflects what you already believed, but is building upon it. Because the idea here is not that you are going through and doing missions, it's that you are creating a person in a world in which it feels alive. This person that you are playing is growing each mission, which is something I think a lot of role-playing games actually struggle with. Your character either starts out as a hero that is already known, or they are very easily picked up and brought into the fold of more higher-powered people. And in this game, it makes it very possible for that not to happen. There are ways that they detail for you to play civilians that are aboard a research vessel or aboard a ship such as the Enterprise, which I guess is a research vessel of some kind, but my point still stands. You are allowed to play whoever you want, and within that world, you are encouraged to create values and build upon those values that would actually be held by people in those situations. And they make this very easy to do because they provide you with things such as background charts and outlooks on the Federation and their tactics and what their culture background is and all sorts of things. They even provide you charts for making completely new life forms that have not been seen in the universe yet. So, overall, this book is amazing for what you get, but I do think that there are people who would struggle with this. Someone like my mother, for example, I'm not too sure if she would be able to play this alone, because it requires you going through and creating, in a way, your own worlds. While it does provide matrices for everything you need to create things like different planets or different starships, different allies, different anything, that doesn't do you any good if you don't feel engaged with it or don't see a point in doing something like that, which is something like my mother would not see. She's someone who would describe herself as having no imagination, and if you have no imagination or you require someone else's imagination to stimulate your own, then this book is not for you. And I kind of think, now I don't know, but I do think that this is the issue that happened with the Fallout game, because they, by they I mean modiphius, they released a similar book in this vein, but for Fallout. And I think a lot of the issue is that people were hoping for something more than just probability matrices and a guide for how to create a story, which is not what these solo books specialize in. And I would argue, for the most part, most of these solo games require you to have some form of imagination. And by that I mean the ability to take a matrix that says, okay, toxic planet and, pescatarian life form and whatever, and be able to create from that an image in your own mind. And not everyone can do that. But if you can, I think this game is well worth getting. This has been great fun. It was an amazing birthday present. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad. I don't know if you're ever even going to watch this. Probably not. Definitely not to the end. But I really appreciate that they got this for me because it was just a blast. And I hope that you guys have fun doing it too, if you end up getting it. And if you do, post your stories. I'm going to be doing that on my website, and soon that'll be linked along with my channel. But yeah, post them in the comments even. I would love to see what kind of stories people have gotten up to in Star Trek Adventures Captain's Log.